Hey guys, welcome back. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the Commodore 64, my favorite all-time computer. It was the computer that got me in love with technology. It made me fall in love with tech, and it was very magical to me at the time. But the reason why I'm bringing this up, and the reason why I sat there in my garage and dug this thing up, was because most recently a developer created a version of Super Mario Brothers, the first one that runs on, on a Commodore 64. Now, I'm not going to use the original Commodore 64. I honestly don't even know if this thing still works, but it's been in a box. It's been in the garage for a lot of years. But I'm going to use the Commodore 64 Mini that I have. So this is going to be what we're going to play it on. But I want to test out that game because I think that's really cool. And I saw a lot of people have done it. But anyways, I want to check it out just because it's something, this platform itself is such a unique platform, and the games were awesome at the time. But in true Retro Ralph fashion, before we get started, I gotta tell you a little funny story. So when I had my Commodore 64 back in the day, I did bulletin boards, the old school internet with dial-up modem and everything like that. And I joined this group, and I remember my sister, we were at dinner. It's my sister and my parents. And my sister goes, "Hey Ralph," and I'm all, "Yeah?" This guy called me trying to validate that you're an adult to get on this BBS thing. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, "Yeah, the adult section." And I'm all, all right, guys, we're gonna check out Mario on the C64. So as of filming this, actually Nintendo went and took down the files on most of the servers out there. So the file does still exist out there, the ROM, but it's going to be pretty hard to find at this point. So that's a big bummer. But one thing I wanted to mention is, so now that we're on the Commodore 64 Mini, you'll see this little USB icon on the bottom right here. Look, right here. So if you're running on the stock firmware that came with it, you will not see this. So you'll have to go and update the firmware on your device first. I recommend you do that because otherwise you kind of have to do this hokey way to load the ROM. It's not hokey, actually, it's the original commands, but you have to do some weird things to the file to get it to launch. So just my recommendation would be just go download the new firmware, and then if you can't acquire the ROM, you just put it on that drive, stick it in your USB, and then what you'll do is what I'm going to do right now. So you just hit select, you'll see the file loader there, and you'll see a very recognizable command, which is the command to launch an original, a diskette-based game or a floppy disk-based game. Okay, so we're on the splash screen for the game. This brings back such great memories for me. So I don't know if you guys remember, but there was like a huge, there was just like this huge wonder around the Commodore 64. I mean, maybe because I was a kid, but one of the really cool things is a lot of the developers would put these like really kind of weird splash screens in, and they'd often have kind of music like you hear right now. So I just think it's kind of cool. I miss this kind of stuff, and sometimes developers would even have like secret messages or just a message in general that they wanted to say to their community. So it was just really cool. I miss those times of this kind of, it felt underground, it felt like brand new and no one else was doing it because it kind of was brand new. So anyways, I don't know if kids today have this kind of experience with the game systems and the computers they have access to. I don't think they do, but this is just really cool. It brings back some interesting memories. So on this screen, there's a couple options. Start the game. Turbo's not available. There's a couple different options here. If you do this one, it toggles the artwork. So I'm going to leave it default. I will say that the controls on this are kind of interesting, and I'll kind of talk about that as we get into the game. But as we're talking about this, I kind of wanted to bring up a story around the Commodore 64. So as I'm playing, I'm going to kind of talk about this kind of funny thing about how I got started with the Commodore 64. So my cousin was an engineer, and one of my first computers was a Commodore 64, which was a hand-me-down from him. And, shoot. Dang it. It's really hard to control, guys, because jump is up. You can change it with F3 if you go to the virtual keyboard, but even then it gets a little hokey. And I am playing it with a RetroBit controller, so it's like really touchy. But anyway, so getting back to the story. So my cousin was an engineer. He gave me the Commodore 64 as a hand-me-down. And I remember he just kind of dumped all the stuff off at my desk. I mean, off at my house. And I was super excited because it was like my first computer, so it was a big deal for me. But he didn't tell me how to do anything, right? So he just dropped it off, and that was it. So I was kind of there to fend for myself. And as I was fending for myself, I couldn't get games to load. I didn't know how to do it. So, I got it all hooked up, but I couldn't get games to load, which is a big bummer. So, I kind of voiced that frustration to my mom. And anyway, she's like, just call your cousin up and maybe he'll tell you what's going on, right? So I call him, and I'm like, hey, cuz, I probably didn't call him cuz, but whatever. Hey, cousin, I can't load games. Like, how do you load games? And all he did was he said RTFM, and then he hung up the phone. Now I'm like 12 maybe. So I don't know what the heck that means, right? So now I'm even more frustrated because I'm like, I don't know, Mom. He told me RTFM and got me off the phone. I was like, what does that mean? And she goes, I don't know what it means, right? And so I was frustrated, though, because I was all excited to play with this, and she knew I was frustrated. So let me see. I don't know how to make him run fast. Oh, man. I don't know. All right, whatever. I can't get him to run. Oh, I think that's it. So anyway, oh, man, this is so hard with this, like, way you have to do things. All right, I better get this. Yeah, all right. So he says RTFM, right? And so I go to my mom, like, what does this mean? She goes, and I was frustrated, and she's like, oh, I'll call your aunt and ask her, right? So she calls my aunt, and my mom goes, hey, Ralph's wondering, Joey tried to give him, that was his name. I'm going to pause it for a second. Tried to give him some guidance on how to load games, and, he just said RTFM. And so my aunt's like, I don't know what RTFM means. So she's all, Joey, hey, Ralphie wants to know what RTFM means. And he goes, now, keep in mind, my mom's on the line with my aunt. I'm not hearing this conversation. It's like a corded phone in the kitchen that's like the stretched out old school corded phone. So my cousin's like, it means read the f***ing manual. And so my mom looks kind of like distraught a little bit. I'm like, what did he say? And she goes, he told you to read the manual, honey. And keep in mind, I'm 12. So anyways, the funny part of this story is that I didn't know for years what RTFM meant because my mom never told me. So when I was a little bit older, it like came to mind again. I'm all, what was that, Mom? And she's like, oh, it was, read the effing manual. So anyways, it's kind of a funny story. But, why I bring that up is that I did figure it out myself. But, that tough love that he gave me was great because even though at the time I was like, what the heck, why won't he show me? But he really wanted me to learn and discover for myself. And I kind of feel like that's what it was all about at that time with computing. Like, now kids turn on computers and they just work, right? They don't think about it really. And you had to get you had to do a lot to get a computer to work back then. And, that led to me doing basic programming and all sorts of neat things. And I spent hours and hours in my basement. That's where I put the computer. I spent hours in the basement playing it. So I'm going to tell you one more story before we wrap up here, and I'll give you some final thoughts on this Mario version, which is very fun, by the way. And it's like, honestly, I can't believe that this developer spent 7 years, doing this. Like, what a cool thing for him to provide the community, even though Nintendo's kind of decided to ruin it. But anyways, this is really cool. I mean, yeah, granted, it's not exactly like the original, but it's pretty freaking fun. So as I was saying, oops. I was in the basement a lot, doing a lot of fun things with my Commodore, and the reason why I bring that up is back then, people didn't really know enough to use things like surge protectors, and I remember I used to have so much fun with that thing, and the reason why I put the Commodore in the basement was because I grew up back east, and it would get really hot and humid in the summertime, so when I wanted to use it in the summer, it was just brutal to have it upstairs in my room, so I brought it downstairs. Well, and our parents didn't have air conditioning. So one year, my parents decided they wanted to get central AC and that installed in the house. Now, I don't have the computer on a power, surge protector or anything like that. So, long story short, I'm downstairs, super fun, having a great time with my Commodore. You know, I don't know, I was probably playing like some goofy game. I'm trying to think of a game I used to play a lot on there. I used to play this Ghostbusters game quite a bit that was pretty fun. Anyway, so I was playing some game, and the electrician was there putting in the air conditioning, and he turns it on to test it, and it caused a surge, and it blew out my power strip, or it blew out the power supply of my Commodore. And I remember we brought it to the one store in town that was like a, you know, computer repair shop, and it wasn't cheap to get that fixed at the time. And I remember my mom was kind of upset because not only did we have to buy the power, you know, the fix, right? So we had to repair it, but we had to buy a power strip, and at the time, the one that we needed to protect it wasn't very cheap. Like now that technology is, oh shoot, that's a little glitchy. You know, now that technology is like, you know, very cost effective, but at the time it really wasn't. So anyways, long story short, I was kind of bummed because I was without my computer for a while, but yeah, the Commodore is what started it all for me, you know, and it's what made me fall in love with technology. So it's a pretty significant computer for me, and it's actually what made me go into technology as my job. So it was pretty cool. So I have a lot of like really fun memories of the Commodore, and plus my cousin eventually came around and taught me more advanced things about the system. So he wasn't always like, you know, a keeper of all the information. But anyways, so I'm going to pause it right here. So this is a pretty fun game, and if you guys get a chance to use it, to play it, I would recommend it. It's just a fun experience, right? And if you have a Commodore 64 Mini, it's really cool. I do have the full system. You saw that in the intro. I decided not to try to figure that all out just because I'm sure I could get it to work, but you know, it's been in the garage for such a long time. I just figured the Mini would be a great way to do it. So anyways, I hope this was an interesting video for you guys. Mario on the C64, it's a pretty awesome, I mean, it's not perfect obviously, but it's pretty damn cool that they recreated it this well. I mean, it's pretty good, man. The controls are kind of hokey, and I'm using a RetroBit controller, and it's okay. But you know, the thing that's hard about this game is jump is up. But you can go to the virtual keyboard and go to F3, and it gives you a couple different controller modes you can go into. So you can find one that you find, you know, is easier to control, but I just did this for use of the video. I did play with it myself, and, you know, some of the modes are a little bit easier to control, like you can make the button be jump and stuff like that. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it kind of piqued your interest as far as, you know, thinking about maybe your past and your experiences with computers, whatever it might have been. You know, after the Commodore 64 for me was you know, like 386s and Intel-based systems and things like that, and those were super fun too. So anyways, hopefully this brought back some memories. It surely did for me. If you liked the video, please like it. Please subscribe to the channel. We're doing so great on the channel as far as subscriptions goes, and you know, the channel wouldn't exist without you guys subscribing and enjoying the content, so I really appreciate that. And put your comments below. I want to hear stories about like your first computer, and did you have a Commodore, and what do you think of this version of Mario? So I want to hear that, so please leave your feedback. Anyways, guys, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.